This is episode 2 in my YouTube series, Petite Renovation Behind the Build. And in this episode, I'm going to be talking through my kitchen. I love my kitchen so much. The kitchen was originally the dining room, and the dining room was the coldest, dingiest, darkest room in the house. So it needed a lot of TLC, a lot of work to create that cozy, light, bright space that I wanted for the kitchen. The first thing I needed to do is work out why I had mold all in the ceiling when you first walked in the dining room. And I looked outside and up on top of the roof, and you could see that there was sort of green algae growing all the way down the roof where the roof met the main house. That's a sure sign that you've had water there for a long time. And when I looked up, I could see there was a little pipe popping out the top of the house where the loft was, so obviously the water tank, that was dripping constantly. So clearly that had been going on for a long time. So first thing was to pull down the ceiling to work out how much damage there was there. This is a really disgusting job, guys. So make sure that you're wearing a mask. I wore a full suit. And as I pulled it all down, not only was there the most disgusting smell, definitely something had died up there in that loft insulation, but it was apparent that the actual felt lining had completely deteriorated, just crumbled when I pulled on it. Not great. So I stripped it all back and we had a look at it, and all of the joists, the wooden joists, were rotten, completely rotten. So we made a decision that the whole roof had to come off. Now, this was quite a blow early on in the process because I had not budgeted for this. I did not think I was going to need an entire new roof, but you know what? It had its advantages. So the kids and I got up on the roof. Well, I got up on the roof. We created a little human chain, and we tried to take off all of the slates as carefully as possible so that I could save as many as possible. I didn't manage to save them all, but I did manage to pick up some more on Facebook Marketplace for next to nothing. So there was a bit of a saving there. Justin took everything off the roof, so I had literally no roof one day when I came back from work. And then he rebuilt the roof. So he put new joists on, he put the battens across, we put a breathable membrane down, which was a type LR, which was quite important to the process because in doing this, it attracted building control who want to see that you're doing a great job. And there are regulations around how much insulation and how thick that ceiling needed to be. This is a challenge in a house with very low ceilings in that kitchen area. And I wanted the thinnest possible with a maximum insulation. So I called a company called Glide Veil Protect, and I'm telling you about them because they could not have been more helpful. They're amazing, actually. They've got a technical line. So if you are looking to not creep into your height of your head height and you're creating a new roof, then definitely call Glide Veil Protect because they were really helpful. When Justin had taken the roof off, we were able to look down and see what insulation was in the walls in that back part of the house, which was it was no good at all. It was like polystyrene, basically thin polystyrene. So we stripped all that off, got it all out. Justin battened the walls, and then we were able to put thick Celotex in there, plasterboard it, and then on the party wall we used soundproof plasterboard, which you need to do on party walls. So we were able to really make that space warm and cozy from what was very cold and just a thin layer of brick, basically. The entire house needed rewiring electrically. So when Paul Briley, who's a long-term friend of mine, who's an electrician, came and did the electrics, we just made sure that he had pulled all the wires that we needed into the kitchen, ready for when it was going to be plastered. So the whole place and my whole house was skimmed by a guy called Ads from Adam Lee Plastering, one of the nicest men in the world, absolute lovely guy with a very cool dog. I'd highly recommend him if you're in the Cambridgeshire, Suffolk area. He did a fantastic job. So he skimmed it all, and then I gave it a whitewash layer, actually 2 whitewash layers in white, just to have it done and covered, even though that wasn't going to be my finished paint. I didn't know what colours I was going to go with at this point, and so I couldn't do any more painting. In an ideal world, I would have done all of the paint at that point, but I didn't know. So hey ho. I wanted to have a glass door at the end of the kitchen. So I wanted units down each side, and as you walk down, there'd be a glass door where you could look out onto the garden. So your eye was drawn, extending it out on the garden. So we put a glass door down the end, and there was a door to the right-hand side, which we bricked up. I didn't need to have 2 doors there. It's, another door adds to the cold element, but also in a tiny kitchen where you're short of space, I knew I'd want to put a bin or something there. So we just blocked that up. It was also a very low height door and a difficult one to replace, to find another door for. Doors are expensive. They're a definite big expense in your renovation that you might not think about. And so getting an abnormal size door is even harder. So it was actually easier to do what we did, which we bricked it up. So now on to my kitchen choice. Now, I would have loved a handmade kitchen, a proper wooden kitchen, made to measure, but that's definitely not an option in my budget. And so I went with Howden's kitchen. I chose the Allendale Dusk Blue kitchen, but what I didn't do was buy any of their handles or their worktops. And that's where I kind of feel you can upgrade your kitchen. So the kitchen itself was pretty good value from Howden's. I went and opened a trade account. They did the design for me, really, really helpful, and delivered exactly what I wanted. And then I chose the worktop from a company called The Only Way is Granite. I love these guys so much. They were great fun, really, really efficient, so quick at getting it done. But they also were just so reasonable. So I spent the money on the worktop. I got the worktop from Only Way is Granite, was called Carrera Quartz. And I love that colour, that sort of light colour set against the blue. And then my handles were by Corsten Architectural. I love Corsten Architectural. Their stuff is amazing. It's definitely on the pricier end, but I think those finishes really make a difference to your kitchen. The sink also was a lovely addition. It was from a company called Balterley, and really, really good price for a butler sink. I went for a double because I like it when you can wash up in one side and still like empty water or whatever into the other side. And I decided to go with a fluted front. I toyed a lot whether I wanted to go fluted or not, and I'm really glad I did because I love the effect. And I also bought a tap from them, which was an instant boiling tap, and I got that in brushed brass. Now, the brushed brass of that tap was quite goldy. I had chosen antique brass plug sockets and lights for the whole house from Heritage Brass, gorgeous. I think they're called the Elite Flat Plate range. But the antique brass and the brushed brass definitely weren't quite right together in the kitchen. So I changed the plug sockets to be the lighter colour in that Elite Flat Plate range so that they matched and that all tied in together. I ended up fitting the kitchen quite prematurely, quite early on in the renovation. And there was two things I didn't do before fitting that kitchen. I didn't lay the floor and I didn't paint the rest of the kitchen. Now, I just wasn't ready to do either of those things, and that's why I couldn't do it. But I was so desperate for a kitchen at this point. I had no running water in the kitchen. I wasn't able to wash paintbrushes. I was painting upstairs. It was such hard work. Having no electricity and no water in the house when you're renovating is a pain, and I just wanted it done. So made the decision to just go ahead and fit the kitchen, and I'd have to paint around it when it came to painting. The floor, an interesting one, because I've had quite a few people criticise me for not having laid the wood floor before the kitchen. Now, of course, if I'd have laid it before, it would have been very easy for starters because you wouldn't have lots of fiddly cuts around cabinets. And also, if someone ever wants to replace a kitchen and put it in a different format, it doesn't matter because your floor is laid all underneath. But to be honest, there's only one way you can put a kitchen in that space. It's such a small, narrow space. There's only one way. And by not laying the floor at that point, one, I protected the floor from the huge amount of footfall and mess and just carnage that was happening throughout the renovation. And also it meant I only had to buy half the quantity because I'm only covering half the floor, the bits that show in between the cabinets. So I don't regret it. It was the right decision. And I know there's people that will be critical of it, but it's okay. This is my renovation. For my radiator in the kitchen and actually the entire house, I went with a company called Lincolnshire Radiators Direct. Did loads of homework. They were the best value. I wanted that traditional column style radiator. I picked the Kensington range. Best decision. I loved all the radiators. I bought both white ones for some of the rooms where I was going to have very pale wall coverings, and then more of an anthracite colour for other rooms. And they're brilliant. And they do really nice antique brass fittings as well on the end, which kind of picked out with everything else I was doing in the house. So again, it's more expensive than buying just a normal radiator, but for me, I think it made a big difference to the quality and feel of the house afterwards. Then my cooker hood, I found this company called Lux Air. They have so many cooker hoods. I think like they have the biggest range or something in England. I picked the linear cooker hood, I wanted it in white because I knew I was going with light walls and I just wanted it to blend. I didn't want it to stick out. When I was looking, there were so many that were like these big, massive black things. I just didn't want something so obvious in the space. And so I managed to find a white one, and they have a huge range of widths. I wanted an 80 because I wanted it to be exactly the same as the cooker underneath. And they have like a 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110 in that linear range. So definitely worth a look if you are after a cooker hood. Paint-wise, I went with Paint and Paper Library's powder one. It's a real pale pink. I did it all over. So I did the ceilings, I completely colour drenched ceilings, walls and woodwork. And I'm really pleased I made that decision. It's really light, but it's got this softness that just offsets really nicely against the blue. It's quite feminine. And I had that pink thread running through the house. So there's either pink or pinky tones running through most of the rooms in the house. If not in the colours or the wallpaper, it will be in the furnishings. Now, compared to the other rooms and finishes in my house, the kitchen at this point is looking quite plain. The herringbone floor definitely brings some pattern, some texture into the space. But in every other room in my house, I have some kind of pretty wallpaper or some kind of feature like that. And I managed to bring that in the tiles. I went down to Cornstone, and there's one local to me in Bury St Edmunds, but they've got lots of stores around the country. They have an incredible range of tiles. I could tile a million different bathrooms and kitchens with all of the choices that I would love to take from there. And I had my eye on this Flora Wild Meadow crackle glaze tile for ages. And I decided to take the plunge because it's quite, it's very floral, it's very pretty. It's quite a brave choice, and I procrastinated for a while about it. But actually, I asked the Instagram and Facebook community what they thought of it, and so many people loved it that it gave me the confidence to go for it. So I did that as a splashback behind the hob. And then it's got a sister tile, which is the same background, but without the floral detail, just a plain crackle glaze, which I used over the sink. Again, I had lots of comments quite critical about that, saying they didn't see the point. Those tiles looked a bit weird on their own over there, but I liked it. I still like it, and I'm really happy with that choice. A lot of people said to do the floral tiles the whole way across on the left-hand side. And I can see where they're coming from, but I think you can have too much of a good thing. And I think that would have been quite dominated. It would have been quite a strong choice, I think, to do that. So I was really pleased with the way I did it. And I was happy that I decided to stick with just the splashback. One thing people have said to me on Instagram and Facebook is that they would have liked to have seen a window above the sink. And look, I hear you. So would I have liked that. But actually, the ceiling height is so low there that a window would have been very low and very small, and I would have had to get planning permission to put it in, which I just didn't have the money to do. So it wasn't an option. But yes, I totally agree. It would have been nice, but it would have just looked out onto the hedgerow and the neighbour as well. So I don't think you would have gained a huge amount. The final touches in my kitchen, I wanted shelving either side of the cooker hood, and I went with a company called Traditional Beams that did me some really beautiful oak shelves made to measure. And the brackets caused me a bit of a headache. I actually ordered some brackets from Etsy, and they were chunky and I don't know, they just weren't right. I definitely felt like I was going to ruin the kitchen by putting them up. So last minute, I was back to Corsten Architectural to get some brackets from them. I chose the Brixton shelf bracket in antique brass, 150 mil. And once they were up, I was so pleased with that decision. I really like them. Then I had a couple of pictures that I picked up in Mallorca, and then this is so sweet, actually. Some people during this renovation, following on socials, decided to send me presents, which is just so lovely. And I talked about my love of lobsters and the fact that I wanted a lobster picture in the kitchen. And this lovely lady called Sharon sent me one of her lobsters, and it's just so cool. It's really, really lovely picture. If anyone's interested in that, please message me and I will send you her details if you want to buy one. And then Jasper & Co. Candles sent me some little lobster candles. Again, I love them so much, and they're a very cool company, so worth checking out. Oh, and then Millstone Mills sent me salt and pepper pots, and you can customize the colors that you have. So I got a pink and blue salt and pepper pot to go on the shelf as well, which I loved. So that's my kitchen, and that's how I transformed it from the dark and dingy former outhouse into a really warm, cozy space that I wanted to spend time in and I wanted to cook in. I managed to pick up my fridge freezer cheap. It was in Wicks on the shop floor. It had been a double order and they heavily discounted it because they just wanted it off the shop floor. And it's an integrated one. So I picked up that cheap for cheap. I also bought my induction hob from Facebook Marketplace. It was a Neff one. It was in really good condition, just had a small scratch on it. And my cooker I also picked up from Facebook Marketplace for an absolute bargain, another Neff purchase. So not everything was new, and I certainly had to really watch my pennies once the roof soaked up so much of the budget. But I did it, and I love that space. It's really, really happy space to be in. So please let me know what you think in the comments below. What did you like about my kitchen? What would you have done differently? And make sure you check back for episode 3, where I will be talking through the bathroom.